Hey there. Good afternoon, and welcome to this month's episode of Talking Trains. I'm John, your host, and this is our guest co-host here. Don't make me regret this, Mike.
No, I
Mike,
won't.
Mike Osborne. Mike was our guest last month. Hi, Mike, and how
Hi.
are you doing?
Oh, pretty good.
That's
Pretty
good.
good.
That's good.
Better than some, not as good as others.
Well, that's kind of the par for the course, I think, for most of us.
Yeah.
So, what have you been up to since last month?
Just doing a lot of work on the clinic that I'm preparing for the convention next week. Getting super excited about being able to see you again at the convention, of course.
Oh,
And I know it's going to be a lot of fun, and I know Phil's going to be on to talk a little bit about it more, and they got some great things going.
sure.
And I look forward to a new. I'm in the PSR actually, but you guys are a really good group, and I'm grown to know quite a few of your members. So, and you guys are a really good group. So I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, one of the things I've always said and will continue to say, really about the NMRA in general, is that if you're in a good region or if you're in a good division, I think I have one of the best divisions, and we're going to have. I'm not just saying this because we're bringing Phil on, but he's actually our superintendent for our division, and he does a great job of just finding interesting things for us to do. We have regular meets and all kinds of really cool stuff. One of these days I might have him come on just to talk about what a divisional superintendent does, because I think that makes a big difference for people when it comes to, are you a member or do you like the NMRA? And people in bad divisions or bad regions, they don't want to have anything to do with it. So, but
Yeah,
anyway,
and of course the national convention is going to be in Long Beach coming up in August,
yeah,
and that's going to be huge, of course. And I'm
it's
sure a
really
lot of
big
people
for your PSR guys for sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, and it'll be Long Beach has nice weather, so it won't be as hot. I was in the one last year in Dallas, and it was quite hot there, although the whole thing was indoors, so it was a
Yeah.
really nice climate controlled everything. So,
Yeah, I'm
but
still trying
it's
to figure out if there's a way for me to get to Long Beach. It's just so expensive to go down there and stay that I'm kind of like, I don't know if I can justify the expense, but
well, we'll
we'll
see. We can
find
work on
out.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I want to go because I want to see a bunch of the people down there. I'm sure we'd end up hanging out. So, yeah,
right.
just a matter of figuring out if it makes dollars and cents to get down there. That's all.
Yeah, and I'm going to be doing a prototype tour of one of the UP yards that I work at, UP Gemco yard, and I'll be doing a clinic too on how things worked in the LA basin from the time I hired out to basically the present. So that'll be
Sure.
something that might be interesting to some people to kind of, because LA is basically a endpoint for Southern Pacific and Union Pacific for that matter, and before the merger, and even Santa Fe to some extent. So that's trains leave and trains depart. They don't run through LA for the most part.
Yeah. I mean, well, it's a port town, right? So that has to be the
Yeah,
continuation of that traffic, which means
right.
it's the end of the line or the terminal for the railroad.
Yeah, the
But
Pacific Ocean is a natural bumper to the railroad, and
sure.
you're just no further you're going.
I guess I should probably remind people. So, in case you don't remember or you didn't see us last month, Mike's a railroader. He's a prototype railroader. Been hired on with the Southern Pacific in 1979. And
Correct.
yeah, you can't tell because he's a lot older than he looks.
Yeah, that's because I use Grecian formula and John doesn't.
That's
So
right.
the little plug for Grecian formula here.
Right. Plus, I have a light coming from up here, which makes it, and my halo also.
Right, but it does look good. It looks a lot better. It looks a lot better than the last time. I'm glad you found your comb.
Yeah, no, it's the hairspray that does that. So,
Yeah,
but
the hairspray and the makeup is a little better this time too.
oh, I don't know about that. It looks pretty bad to me. I don't know. I intentionally put all this mess behind me because I thought it might distract people from this mess.
Right. Is that a train back there running, or what is that? They just ran out the bumper.
You talking about the Santa Fe back there?
Yeah, it's
Some kind of F unit.
oh yeah, that's your bathroom door. That's right. Okay.
Yeah, it should be my bathroom door. Dude, all kinds of great sounds coming from there. But anyway, so Mike, we're getting goofy already. You
Yeah.
had something that you wanted to share, so let me bring that up. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Okay.
Your reason for sharing, I thought, was also interesting. So let's bring this up, or do you want me to bring? Do you want to show on
Well,
the screen first?
yeah. Let me show you my hand first.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to get real far back here, but this is a Southern Pacific train order hoop, and I'm sure most people are familiar with train orders where the train would come and you would reach out the window and grab it and pull it off, and then you have the train orders in here. Now, it's sort of a lost art of actually tying the string. And John's going to put a couple pictures up on how to do that, and somebody could either email me or John to do it. But what I plan on doing, I do have this is also, wait a minute, where's my camera? Okay. This is a close-up of the part that has the spring in it.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
and I don't quite have this right, but
those two bamboo pieces spread out, right? They whip open.
Right. Yeah. As it comes off, it will pop up.
Yeah.
And then you take it with you. The bamboo hopefully stays with the train station.
Right.
And this is a item that's probably 60 years old. I'm holding my hand. I got it from some friends of mine, some engineers that took it when the depot closed. I mean, they always had like 20 at any given station. And this hooks into the rack with these two knobs. And it would up to 3, one for the engine, one for the helpers, and one for the caboose at different heights, as I'm sure people have seen. But if so many guys are into the TT&O, I think it'd be great if you did something like this. Back in the day, we had train orders that would authorize your movement to different stations. Now, just simply advertisements. That's how it's gone.
Those are your Wiener Schnitzel coupons?
Yeah, it's a Der Wiener Schnitzel coupon, yeah. Anyways.
That's important too.
Yeah, but that's about the size they were. And a little side note here, when you did grab them, this was quite a thing to do at 60 miles an hour, sticking your hand through here in the middle of the night. You could barely, believe me, this comes up real fast in a train locomotive. And if you were to hit one of these posts, it was going to hurt. And sure. So they had a little light on it, of course, like a 100-watt bulb. And that was about it. But they were located, a lot of here in California.
Yeah.
And they did this up to about 1983.
So now, but here's the question, though. Maybe people watching don't realize this, but you don't just grab the paper off of the string. You stick your arm through that whole thing, right? And then
right, and you get I'll kind of release it now, but you get the whole string, and then you get the string.
Yeah. So basically, you've got a loop of string with your train orders around your arm after you've gone through it.
Right, yeah. And then
I think I've seen this demonstrated at the Simi Valley Depot when we were, or Santa Susana Depot when we were out there last summer.
Okay.
Yeah, because the guy there, I don't know if you're familiar with that organization, but they have a depot that's basically been restored, and it has a whole station agent's office and station agent's living space in the depot. It's a very interesting place to look at.
Well, I've been by there lots of times on the train, and we have another depot right here, half-mile from my house.
That's
they're
Saugus,
restoring.
Right?
Yeah, Saugus, the Saugus Depot.
Cool.
It is moved from us. Yeah, go ahead, bring that up. Yeah. So this is my friend Mike Jarrell. He's an engineer and a member of the SP Historical Society. He got this for me, and it kind of shows how to tie it. And it's made to tie, and then you pull the two strings, and then it tightens up the train orders into that string.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is definitely a lost art. So if anybody's interested, they can look at that, maybe screenshot it.
I have a question. So the picture on the right, is that basically two slip knots that you then slide down over the orders?
Yeah, when you pull the two strings, when you go to tighten it, it will tighten the orders in that little section there, and they always kind of fold them in half. Now I know they're small here, but what that is, they're basically maybe 7 inches by 9 inches, and people often call them flimsies. You've heard that word because they were printed on very thin pieces of paper so they could have like, with carbon, a lot of people remember carbon back in the day.
Yep.
They had to keep a copy. And so they were very, very thin. And also, if you're making 3 copies plus a copy for the station, now you have 4 copies. And they would type them out on an old regular keyboard, manual keyboard typewriter. And some people don't know this, but they had a special typewriter that only typed in capitals. You could not change it, so there was no mistakes because everything was done in capitals.
Nice.
Yeah, and they're almost impossible to find. Nobody knows where any of these went, and they were pretty much in every well, they had to be in every train order station on the SP for that matter. I'm not sure what other railroads did, but they had a special. I can't think of the name of the company right now. I want to say Underwood, but that made the typewriters, but. They belong in museums, though, if you have one.
Yeah, that's cool. There's a typewriter on. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Go ahead.
There's actually 2 typewriters at the South Bay Historical Railroad Society where Sydney and I are volunteers and members, and they're both antique typewriters. One of them is in the 1912 rail car that's parked outside the depot and is in the process of being refurbished. And I can't tell you how many times I've walked in there during an open house and there's some little kid pounding on the thing and the parents are just looking at the phone or not even paying attention. And it raises the hair. You think this looks
right.
bad. It just raises the hair on my neck. Like no, that's an antique. You can't let kids just pound the hell out of that thing. So I'm sensitive about stuff like that.
I mean, we all grew up with typewriters to do projects for school and everything else, and they're actually pretty sensitive little a piece of hardware, if you want to call it that. They have a lot of. Well, they had all the keys of the letters, and they all had to type in and hit, and that was one of the requirements. Yeah,
that was one of the back to the exact place, right?
So. Right, and then move and shift over, and I think one of the requirements, you had to type 60 words per minute to be a train order operator, and you also had to know Morse code as a fallback. And they would literally Morse code with the train dispatcher. I know some guys I think are actually doing that on their model railroads, but that's definitely a lost art also.
Yeah, my friend has. I don't know if you've met him or not, but his name is Dave Adams. He has a narrow gauge O-scale layout. If you look on this channel, you can find it. It's the Durlin Branch, Denver and Rio Grande. You've probably seen the video. It's a beautiful layout, first off, but he has actually they're like Band-Aid containers that have things that tap on them so that if you're a station agent at one of the stations, he'll say, here's your call. And it's a Morse code for that station.
Okay.
And after that, I mean, there's a light too. So, when it's when you need to pick up the phone, but it taps, it doesn't ring a phone. It just taps out the Morse code for your phone. You're supposed to answer the phone when you hear it. So it's pretty cool.
They actually had little different 2-letter symbols for all the stations on the SP. The one I can recall right now is San Luis Obispo is BI. And that was the actual BI. That would mean, like you're just saying, be aware, we got some, listen, we got something coming for you right now to acknowledge. And it's kind of neat when you think about it. I mean,
it sounds like something you could do at clinic on sometime.
Yeah, I don't know that much about it because, of course, I was never a trainer or operator. I just seen it happen. But
but Mike, you know more about it than everybody else, so they'll believe you.
Yeah.
Speaking of,
I'll make up what I don't know.
Right, and if you say it like you're confident, then people will believe you anyway. So, like, well, this guy seems right. He has a deep voice and seems to know what he's talking about. So I'll just go with what he says.
Yeah, I have a friend who's a train dispatcher that worked, Tehachapi and everything. And I go, I need to know how to tie the train order hoops. And she goes, well, good luck, because I would never actually tied one because I was a dispatcher. I never needed to know that. And I go, oh, wow, that kind of...
The station agent would tie it, right?
The train order operator, yeah.
Okay.
The telegrapher. The telegrapher was the actual name of the job.
So that's not the same as the station agent?
Well, and station agents could be doing something else too. And some of the smaller stations, they were combined. But some of the bigger stations had just a train order operator and 24 hours a day, don't forget. The station where I still go to work is one of the original SP stations in Oxnard. And they had a small ABS board, and they had a 24-hour telegrapher there. And that person did nothing but that. They had 2 or 3 other clerks that would do other work. Like go out to because you couldn't leave.
Yeah.
Because you had to be there to. You never knew when a train was coming, and that was very serious business.
Yeah. Well, I was starting to say, speaking of clinics, we have some clinics coming up next week, actually, in my area, and you're going to be up here, so we're going to have to do lunch or something. But I want to bring on Phil because he wants to talk about it's our last big push for the virtual convention. One of the really cool things that we're doing for our regional convention here, which is in my division this year, is we're doing what we call a hybrid convention where the live clinics from one of the rooms are going to go out into a Zoom meeting where virtual attendees get to attend and learn stuff. And this is for people who, can't get there because they're mobility impaired, or maybe they can't afford to go, or maybe it's too far or whatever. And so we're really excited about offering that. And let me bring Phil up because he's probably even more excited than I am. He's to borrow something from Saturday Night Live. Phil's been sitting in our basement here for the past half hour, drinking coffee and popping no-dos. So let me bring him on and see what he has to say. Hey, there he is.
Yeah, make me sound terribly excited there, John. Hi.
It's Phil. Phil's here.
Yeah, do you know what I'm talking about, though? That was the motivational speaker, Matt Foley, that was played by Chris Farley. And the lead up to introducing him was he's been, drinking 3 pots of coffee and drinking Red Bulls or whatever. And then he comes out and tears the place apart. So you're Matt Foley, the motivator.
I remember that.
I quite frankly avoid coffee after noon.
Oh, I do too.
It's a real problem. I get too excited. Anyway, so thanks, John. I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about the tech line, which is the PCR with the Pacific Coast region. That's basically we're Northern California, Northern Nevada, and Hawaii. We did talk about having the convention in Hawaii, but decided it might be somewhat of a challenge to get there. There's no train service to Hawaii, so we figured we probably wouldn't get a lot of members to go. So anyway, with that, let me go ahead and share my screen.
Sure.
And what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about what we're doing and why I think it's exciting for people to go do this. So basically, the tech line is a convention. It's April 24th to 28th. It's in Silicon Valley in California, right in the middle of Silicon Valley. I'm not so much going to talk about the physical convention, but if you are interested, go on the website here. I've got a link at the end, and $139 room rate in the middle of Silicon Valley. One of the things that is a great reason to go to the convention is we're going to have some amazing layouts on tour, and a number of those layouts are probably kind of last opportunity to see them. Jack Burgess is going to take his layout in October. Dave Parks is actually not doing well and is actually in hospice care. I've also heard of 3 other layouts that probably within the next year will not be there any longer. So there are probably 5 or 6 layouts, and some of those are almost John Allen level layouts, ones that you really don't want to miss. But what I really wanted to talk about is the virtual convention we're doing. So this will be the 25th to the 27th. That's Thursday to Friday of next week. So we're literally right there. We're almost just a week away. As John said, we're taking one of the clinic tracks, which is 15 clinics, and that will be put in the virtual convention. We're going to have contest room tour. We're going to have a tour of kind of the vendor room and the layouts that are there. We'll have participant views that John has put together of the prototype tours, the Carter Brothers, which is basically the SBCRR. which is restoring the Carter Brothers narrow gauge cars, kind of the dawn of California railroading. And also Niles Canyon, which is pretty amazing. They have 22 pieces of motive equipment, a whole bunch of rolling stock, and see what they're doing. Really neat railroads. I'll talk a little bit about the virtual train show and kind of what we're doing in breakouts here in a moment. But pretty exciting. We also have some virtual door prizes. We got some great virtual door prizes. Those are certificates, something you'll physically have to pick up. So what we're doing is something different than a Zoom meeting. I mean, most of us have essentially experienced virtual model railroading as something either like what we're doing on StreamYard, which is basically a broadcast, or as a Zoom meeting where it's basically a sequential set of speakers. What we found when we did the national convention in 2021, and John and Sydney and myself were all involved in that, was that if you created different spaces, people began to move around, and instead of people treating it like an opportunity to go sit and listen, they actually began to interact. So what we're doing is we'll have essentially a gathering room where you'll come into the meeting. It's going to be done on Zoom, so it's easy to use. And that's where the clinics will be done. So they'll be in that space. When there are not clinics going on, that room will be essentially a place where people can interact, talk, bring up a subject, ask a question. We'll also have clinic goes on. We're going to have a place set up for the clinicians to go after the clinic and be available in a virtual space. These will be done using Zoom breakouts. So if you've never been in a Zoom meeting with the Zoom breakouts, what happens is that you can click on a breakout room and go into a separate space and have a conversation just with the people in that space. And it's really cool. Think about it almost as having a whole bunch of rooms at a hotel you can go walk into whenever you want and have a conversation. One of the breakouts we're going to have is we're going to have a number of associations, LDSIG, the OPSIG, O-Scale Central, New Tracks Modeling, which has 3 $2,000 scholarships for young students in university or college or junior college pursuing STEAM degrees that are model railroaders. Women in Model Railroading, Sydney will be driving that breakout. And then we're working with New Tracks to do a virtual train show. So pretty exciting, the virtual train show. We've got a number of really cool vendors that are going to participate in that. And what they've done is each one has put together a video about their products, and then they'll be in a breakout for an hour to talk about their products. And some of these are probably vendors you haven't heard of, but that are building some really cool products. I mean, obviously, folks may have heard of Mini Prints. They do amazing prints. Cat's Paw is a company that does amazing amount of 3D printing. They've actually built a new chain-driven vehicle movement system. If you're familiar with MagnaRail, similar to MagnaRail, but it's all 3D printed. And they're actually going to be talking about that at the convention. And, some of the other companies, Banta, Brennan's, Konowingo Models, Model Makers, Interaction, if you haven't seen their kits, they're a laser cutting company, do some of the most amazing kits. They do an HO scale Coke machine that I think has 7 or 8 layers of laser cut pieces you put together. So when you get done with the Coke machine, you actually can see bottles inside the Coke machine. Pretty amazing details. So each one of those will be there. And Seth Newman from Model Railroad Control Systems is a local company who has one of the widest arrays of electronic and different products. He has not only his own products, which are CTC type products, but also has a community that designs things, and he actually gets boards built and you can buy them. So some great vendors. The way the convention will work, as John said, we're going to take one of the clinic rooms, and this is the list of clinics. This is up on the website, so you can go look at the clinics and read about them in detail. Typically in the morning, there will be 3 clinics. In the evening, there will be 3 clinics. During the day and the afternoon, what you see on the right is what we'll be doing. So we'll be having these breakouts where you can go talk to a vendor, you can go talk to an association. But you'll notice at the bottom of the page, there's the daylight where we have the wireless communications for DCC, but there's also a chief and a Zephyr. So what we're going to do is have a number of breakouts. So anyone who wants to can say, I want to propose a topic. We'll put it up and you can have a breakout and have a room and everybody go talk about that. So one of the topics that we're going to put up is dead rail, an area that a lot of folks want to have, like to have conversations about. So what it really means is that you're not there just to listen and pay attention. You're there to actually interact and maybe actually contribute things that you've experienced that you have familiarity with. Um, this is again is the schedule for the 3 days. This is up on the website, so you see it's a fairly packed 3 days. There's lots of great activities, lots of opportunities to interact, lots of opportunities to learn. The thing we've tried to do is take as much as we can of a physical convention and turn it into a virtual convention. I've taken one of the clinic tracks. We've done the prototype tours. John has taken care of putting those together so you can kind of see what the prototype tours are about. We're going to go through the contest room. We're going to have the virtual train show, which is really in the virtual part of the convention, though we are inviting all of the physical attendees to be able to come to the virtual convention if they want to. So I fully expect that some of the folks that are at the physical convention will decide some of the afternoons to go to some of the virtual train shows. The layout tours, the videos for most of the layout tours are large number of them are online. If you go on the website, you can see that John has videoed a number of these, and you'll get a good example. We're not going to have any operating sessions virtually, and non-rail and the vendors and swap meet really don't apply. What we're doing is we are going to take the banquet, and the banquet will be online on Saturday night. So you'll be able to kind of see the banquet and of course, meeting old friends. So the really good news is that if you're on this, if you're on tonight or listening later in the week, if you use the code PCR24, capital P, capital C, capital R 24, you'll get a $10 discount to only $20. So, I think it's very interesting to think about 3 days of entertainment, interaction, great knowledge, probably meeting folks that you've never met before. When we did the national convention, one of the comments people made was, I met people on the other side of the country, or even on the other side of the world, that I would never have met if I hadn't gone to this kind of an event. We have been able to extend registration from the 15th. Our registrar was very much able to extend that to the 22nd. So if you're interested in going, unfortunately, there's no on-site registration for the virtual convention. You will have to register by the 22nd. So anyway, so thank you very much, John, for giving me the opportunity to talk about it. And I think it's going to be a great convention. We have about 65 people signed up. I'm hopeful we'll get another 10 or 20 here fairly quickly. And that really gives enough people that it's going to feel like an event as you move around, interact with people, and talk to people. It'll really be an exciting thing to participate in, regardless of where you are in the world. I mean, the beauty of this is, it's somewhat inconvenient. The timing, if you're in Australia or Hong Kong, if you're on the East Coast, the evening clinics will be a little bit late, but the good news is that they're all there available for you, and you'll be able to see them. So, John, I think that kind of wraps it up from my perspective.
Yeah, something else to mention. I have three things. One, I learned, and I was with you, Phil. I thought Jack was going to be taking his layout down, but it turns out he won't. But it would still behoove people to come to the in-person convention if they can make it, because just because he's not going to take it down in October doesn't mean it's going to be there forever. So It may very well be one of the last times you'll ever get a chance to see his layout. On one of your slides, it said that the registration was closing on July 22nd. I don't know if you caught that, but you might want to change that if you're going to talk to anybody else about this.
There's always that interesting thing when you edit, and
you're in it.
So what we got to do though is just to make sure that we get it right for everyone. So no one is surprised. We'll right. Go back here and we'll go ahead and share it again.
Oh, do you want to share it again?
And that way you can see, yeah, there you go. And now it says 422. So
there you go. That's
a second. So that's 5 days from now. That's big. I think it's Sunday night if I'm right, but either Saturday or Sunday night. So, but again, if you thought about it and you've said, I'm going to wait, you've heard about this and something and said, hey, I'm going to wait. Quite frankly, got a few more days to register, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun for $20. I was looking in the hobby shop at what $20 will buy you, and if you're an O-scaler, it's basically a couple of couplers, not even one truck. So you start thinking about that trading off to 3 days of of learning and fun and interaction. I think it's a very good opportunity.
Yep. Something else that I was going to mention, I don't know if anybody else caught this, but this guy right here on screen is going to be in the virtual room. No, this guy, he's going to be in the virtual room. So you get you'll get to see Mike giving his presentation about whatever it's going to be about. We're not going to do any spoilers on this show because we want people to sign up. The last really important thing, and I think this is really big, is to go to the virtual convention. All you need is an internet connection and a device. You do not have to be a member of anything.
No.
Everybody's welcome from anywhere in the world. You know, all those lone wolf modelers out there, you're welcome to come to this convention. Who knows? A lot of times I have people in the comments on these live shows who say, I don't know anybody in my area. How can I meet someone? Well, you may find someone who's in your area at this show because it's virtual and people from all over the place are going to be there. So,
well, and I think you brought up a great point, John. You know, doing a hybrid convention like this with a virtual component is a big challenge. You have to have a combination of people that are capable of producing it, people that are capable of arranging it, putting everything together. Luckily, because we're in the middle of Silicon Valley, we have those kind of people available. But so for folks not in the Bay Area, not in the West Coast, probably won't have a virtual convention. But if you've thought about going to a convention, this is a great opportunity for $20 to check it out and see a lot of what a convention's like. Because, you know, I tell people I was a modeler from the mid 80s to the late 90s, and then my life changed. Bought a new house, tore the layout out, had a new job, no time for modeling until about 2015. I didn't join the NMRA back then. I didn't go to any conventions. A real regret I have that I would have had the opportunity to become much more integrated into the overall community of modelers. And I think as model railroaders, sometimes we miss that. That's really one of the fun parts of being a model railroader is all the other model railroaders that we can, you know, interact with, learn from, and build those long-term social relationships. So it's a great way to just try it out. If you thought about it, you know, going to a physical convention is typically a $500 to $800 for a regional, or $1,500 to $2,000 for a national or more. So, you know, if you've thought about it and said, gee, that's just too much money, spend $20 and check it out and see if you're interested in maybe going ahead and trying it next time the convention is close to you and you can get to it easily.
Yep. Works for me. Good. I've seen people make that comment too, that they want to go to virtual so they can decide if they want to go to the in-person. So
absolutely. And $20 is such a little investment today, quite frankly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Cool. Thank you so much, Phil. And, you know, I don't remember if you were here or not, but I was just telling these guys before we got started that, you know, we have a good division and you're a big reason for that. So thank you for all that you do.
Well, thanks, John. You know, I think I see it as being kind of I don't know, sacred's probably not a great word, but a responsibility, because I think it's really important for model railroaders, not just to have the excitement of building models and the focus of that, but the socialization of meeting other people and having friendships. It's important as we get older, because when you leave work, a lot of those things go away. A lot of your social networks are part of your job. And if your job, when you retire, you basically leave those. And this is a new way to develop new social networks, make friends. And you know, it was almost every area in the country has great opportunities to go do local railroad events, go see layouts. And that's really what, to my mind, the NMRA is all about is, you know, having people be able to learn and grow in their modeling easily.
Yeah. And it's all about your region and your division, I've found. So
absolutely.
Right on. All right. Thank you so much, Phil. And
thanks, John. Appreciate it.
See you next week.
See you then. Bye.
All right. Okay. So, wow. I mean, after that, I feel like we've done the whole show, Mike. We could just go now.
Yeah, I'll just go into beans and take a nap, and that'll be it for me.
Yeah. No, there's no sleeping here. You're not at work right now, so you can't do that.
I can't invoke the napping policy.
We're not a union company here. You have to.
No bother.
See now, I'm trying to do a lead up here for Ray. So you may have noticed I'm wearing this stylish Around the Layout podcast shirt here today, but we're not going to talk to Ray about his podcast. I mean, it might come up because that's really what he's known for. But one of the things I really like to do is when somebody comes on this show and they're known for something else, I want to talk about something else that people don't know about them. And I found out from Ray early on that he's also an avid rail photographer. And I thought, oh, well, that would be a very nice thing to have him come on and talk about. So let me bring Ray on here. Here he comes. There he is. Hi, Ray. Welcome.
Here I am. Yeah. Hey,
Hello,
great
Ray.
to be here.
So that was your big introduction. I hope I didn't mess it up.
It sounded all right. Sounded good. No, I like it. It's all the things we talked about. Yeah.
Right. We have some, of course, you know, this medium also kind of lends itself to things like slideshows and pictures and video and stuff like that. So
right.
It makes sense to have, you know, someone. I've had other photographers. As a matter of fact, some of the photographers that I've had on this show in the past are sitting in the chat talking to people right now.
Oh, that's a ton of pressure. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, hey, look, if the pictures really suck, you won't be invited back, and I'll
okay.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, so this is probably my, this is the debut and the finale of Ray Arnott on TSG Multimedia. So good to be here.
Maybe as the photographer, but you'll come back. Hopefully, you'll come back as the podcast Ray someday.
Maybe we'll see what happens. But it'll be fun to share, a little bit of my photography and talk about it and So
and I will give this one spoiler to people. The pictures are good, so he will be back. So, with that, is there anything else you want to say before we get started? Because I can bring
there'll be plenty of talking as I bring these up, and I'll kind of share my story as we go along here. And I think you got to hit share on it though, right?
Oh, I do, and I'm getting to that. I'm just on another screen right now, trying to do something so I can tell everybody in the world that you're on. Because
no matter what happens,
the
best part is I don't have to host tonight. I really like that. It's kind of just kick my feet back and let John run all the controls, and it's his show, and I don't have to edit it afterwards. So I'm really psyched about that.
And as someone who's done plenty of that kind of editing, I can say I understand precisely what you're talking about. The good news for me is that I also don't have to edit because it's going out live.
It's live. Yeah, without a net. There's no net here.
Yeah, we'll do it live.
Do it live.
Do it live.
All right, let me bring this up here and we'll get started in earnest. I mean, so we have fun with these things. I hope everybody likes that. And by the way, Ray, before we start this, let me just show this to people. I was noticing what an amazingly stylish shirt you have on. Thank you so much.
That's something. Yeah, well, it's over here. It's over here. I'm not mirrored here. So yes, got my TSG Multimedia polo on. It's a nice, comfortable shirt. I've worn it a few times on the doing shows and doing a few things live. So proud to have it, and glad you're wearing. You're looking pretty stylish too, John.
Well, it's almost as stylish as this one, but not quite. So
they're I would say equally stylish. They look very good.
Well,
I don't know about the guys that they're on, but the shirts look good. So we're off to a good start here.
And Ray, not to interrupt, but where are you at right now? Where you're at your home, I assume, but where is your home?
I'm all the way over on the right coast. I'm in Plainfield, Connecticut. So I'm about 30 minutes from the Rhode Island border. And southern New England is where I reside.
Okay, cool. And I subscribed to your podcast while you were doing your intro, so I'll listen to a few episodes there.
We got a new subscriber, John. It's been great seeing you. We'll check you next time. See you later. So, that's what we wanted to do. Get at least one more subscriber. No, that's awesome. Thank you, Michael. I hope you enjoy. And absolutely. So
we need to change your name on the screen, Mike, to Mike, because who else calls you Michael?
My wife when I'm in trouble.
Oh, well, I just call you Michael then. That's for that. That's for that Grecian formula joke last time.
That's right. Yeah, that will not ever be forgotten.
Oh no, Take it away, Ray. I'm sorry.
No,
Yeah.
no, this is good. This is good. So, yeah, so I put together a slideshow, and it's kind of based on, I'll share real quick. I did a book, and it's kind of funny when I told people that I did a photography book, and it was like, oh wow, you did a photography. It's like, nah, I went on Shutterfly, and I put together a book, and the only reason why I did a book is my grandparents are in their upper 80s, and when you show it to them on what you're doing with photography on an iPhone, it just doesn't have as much impact. And I always recommend to any photographer, print your stuff. Every once in a while, just print something. There's just nothing like the tangible look of print. So you can see here, I'm holding up. It's a book that I put together, and I brought it down to my grandparents, and they were able to sit there and flip through my photos. And a lot of the photos that are in that book are what I'm presenting tonight, plus some new ones from some recent trips as well. So
nice.
That is nice. I didn't know that you'd done a book too, Ray.
Yeah, and it was simple. And what's funny is I printed one, and then somebody else says, wow, this is a great book. Do you have another copy? And I was like, oh, well, Shutterfly's got a deal. I'll print another one. And then I sold one. I was like, holy crap. Yeah, I mean, the guy offered me money, and I sold it to him, and then I sold another one. So I sold a couple of them, but it was mainly for entertainment. It was for be able to share with my grandparents and for them to see it. And it's kind of nice little coffee book table. And I put it down by the layout as well. So operators in between, they can flip through and look at train photos too. So a little bit of entertainment for the layout room too. So
we're not going to have to order Ray's book.
No, only $19.95 to order today.
But wait, get 2 copies for $29.95.
Yeah, pay shipping.
By the end of it, it's like you can get 10 copies for the price of one. I don't know what you'll do with the other 9, but yeah, sure. Yeah.
You sell them.
Yeah, it does say volume 1. Volume 2, I guess by calling it volume 1, it committed me to eventually doing a volume 2. But yeah, the picture slowed down for a bit. We'll talk about that as we get into this. So. That was awesome. Not my book there, by the way, Split Rock. That was Joe Mame. That is his book, Design It, Build It, Burn It. That's an inside joke.
Oh,
so here's how I get started. I grew up with trains, model trains, and kind of a idea of trains as a kid, but really railroading and model railroading, in fact, kind of got kicked back up in the early 2000s. Let's call this 2003, 2004. I worked right down the road from where most of these photos were taken, which was in Franklin, Connecticut, and my discovery of the New England Central Railroad, some older GP38s, a lot of older units that were repainted when the New England Central took over the Central Vermont line between New London, Connecticut, and St. Albans, Vermont. And that's where I started learning. This was all, as you can kind of tell, it was point and shoot. And, boy, I really wish I had a better camera and had a better idea of taking photos at that time, but I didn't. And so there we were. But it got me kind of kicked back up in the model railroading hobby with the NECR being right down the road.
What year were those taken approximately? I could see the GE in the upper lower. I know that's a newer engine, but
yeah,
these look 80s, early 80s, 70s.
That's actually early 2000s. So I'm thinking 2003, 2004. Yeah, okay. That's about the time I was working in Franklin, Connecticut, and I would take my lunch breaks and hope that they were down in Franklin, switching out there were 2 feed mills at that time. So it was, hopefully catching that, or, a little bit farther down the road in Norwich, Connecticut, catching them heading to to New London, Connecticut. So yeah, that was about the era of that.
Okay.
And then, obviously taking it on the road, and then I left that job, and I was able to bang around a little bit and take some other trips. I worked within Connecticut doing a job that, I was able to stop roadside and catch some engines, like the bottom left there. That's the Connecticut Southern Railroad when they were headquartered in East Hartford, Connecticut. And then trips down to the grandparents, the top left, one of the more simpler yet to me a very cool, because they just stick out so well, as those Pickens engines, the U-boats there. Caught them in Anderson, South Carolina when visiting them, and the D&H unit that was up in Albany and Buckingham Branch, Buckingham Branch was kind of a funny one because I was heading to my grandparents. I stopped at a hotel halfway, and I had you sign a waiver at the desk. And the waiver was, if you take the room that they were offering me, you were signing, understanding that it was right next to an active rail line. Well, it didn't take me long to sign. I was like, oh, sure. Yeah, that's not a problem for me. So, yeah. And then woke up in the morning and just caught them quickly. It's about as fast as I could get the camera out to just grab something as they were going by. So this was kind of all pre-cell, cameras on cell phones too. I didn't, no more than a flip phone back in this time and a little point and shoot. So
pretty good.
And then, that it was fortunate enough, a lot of the trips to Selkirk, New York. And if you ever talk to anybody, it's talked about Selkirk. Selkirk's, I think, the largest rail yard in the Northeast, CSX, former Conrail. And they had a place called Ben's Bridge, and it's legendary because it was the place to watch trains from. And unfortunately, they took it down. But you could stand up basically on the bridge and get shots of the engine house, and you can see the one on the left. I'm looking down as they're in the refueling areas and stuff. It was really a cool spot to be, and just neat that I was luckily got into it. Sometimes I feel like I got into the hobby too late, but there are times where I'm starting to catch a little bit of what was maybe a little bit better golden era when it comes to rail fanning, especially up in Selkirk.
What's interesting about that, Ray, is that the golden era is whenever you're doing it, because in 20 years, this stuff isn't going to be running at all. And people are going to say, boy, I sure miss those Gevos or whatever,
Yeah, exactly.
And, what happened to those, right?
Yeah. And that's what I tell people is when it comes up on the podcast often, it's like, what you're shooting today will eventually be somebody's golden era. Exactly. So just continue to shoot, continue to capture. And that's kind of what I try to do with the photography. Impressionable moments. You can see I was still working at Nutmeg. I'm wearing the shirt. I had chased one night. It was like a Friday night, single and no responsibility. So I could chase, and I ran all the way up to Palmer, Mass. And I caught this unit sitting on with a former Boston and Albany in Palmer. There was a derailment somewhere east of there, and they were stuck. That was an eastbound train, and they were over getting ice cream. And the crew came back with 2 ice creams in their hand, and I popped out of my vehicle and I just said hello. And they said, "Hey, you want to come up?" Which is not something you hear at all anymore, unless you know somebody really well. And they invited me up, and they plopped me right there in the engineer seat, and it was a thrill of a lifetime to sit in that locomotive. And I've actually modeled that locomotive. It's now sitting over on a diorama, patched out 7323, a C40-8. So
it's like a -8. Okay.
More importantly, Heath just popped up a question. Who's that little kid? I want to know who that guy is with all that hair. That just amazes me. And I wonder where the heck all that went. So, but
I don't know. Let's see.
Yeah,
it's not there now. Yeah.
No, it departed along with that train at some point, and yeah. So, but nonetheless, thrill of a lifetime to be able to sit in the cab, and the crew was incredibly awesome, and showed me around, answered every question I had, which was just absolutely amazing. So,
yeah, they were able to do that at one point in time, weren't they?
Yeah, they seemingly were able to, past era, different world for sure, different security standards for sure. I understand, but definitely something that I'll never forget. And then the good things in my life, meeting my wife and us having children. And when we had our first child, they said, honey, we should buy a decent camera. And I guess I said I was buying it for her, but I started learning how to use it. And pretty soon it kind of got forgotten that it was supposed to be bought for her. And I started using it and did a lot of sports photography and was kind of into that kick. And then I moved into the Plainfield neighborhood, and this is where these photos were taken. We're right here in Plainfield. This is essentially my backyard. My house is located between the Willimantic branch where the locomotive 4006 and is actually all the pictures are sitting on the Willimantic. And if you would follow that, where that locomotive is heading in the larger photo, it's heading down to the Norwich branch that runs between Groton, Connecticut, and the Northeast Corridor all the way up to Worcester, Massachusetts. So I live between those two lines. So, in fact, probably at some point tonight, those I'll hear through the window here in the studio. I'll hear the train NR2, which is the turn to Cedar Hill Yard in New Haven. They'll be putting a train together and departing. So I'm stuck right between the two of them, and yeah, it really cool spot to be, and it's kind of a layup to do photos there. So I just started shooting and trying to learn a little bit about composition and what's right, what's wrong, technical stuff. Early on stuff that I started to learn. And I also started to fall in love with these wide cabs.
Do they still use that paint scheme?
This is no longer their paint scheme, although there's still locomotives, thankfully, still in this scheme that, the Genesee in Wyoming has not painted. We affectionately, I'll credit Don Iris for the term candy corn is what we call it. The orange and black. It looks like they're dressed up for Halloween, and it's sad to see the traditional paint go, but there's still a few that are untouched, and hopefully they never see their way into a paint booth, and we get to keep those traditional colors. So,
that's interesting. There's a P&W out on the West Coast. I think is Portland Western. I think that's also a Genesee company. So
yeah. So G&W, Genesee and Wyoming Railroad. Yeah, they own a whole bunch of these short and regionals, and I do believe so. They do a different logo for each one, but I don't know. I get corporate, corporate identity, but it's sad when it erases your local identity of sorts. So, So, and Mark Herrick, this is on your favorite place, which is Gluck. Mark just absolutely loves that station name Gluck. That's right there. It's named after the farm. So they have station names, wherever as you go down, it's a control point, and that one's called Gluck, Gluck. So, Then I started taking, here, this is Casey, South Carolina, another trip down to my grandparents. One thing I can say about my grandparents, one, huge supporters of my rail fanning. They're always enthused when they see me go out, and they love the fact that I have this hobby. And then they always pick great places to live. And this one, with being in South Carolina, there was a lot of great rail fanning to do. And I took a ride down towards Columbia, and this again, Casey, South Carolina, and you're just kind of learning, and what you'll see as a general theme of my photography. I shoot like a rail fan, and there are some amazing photographers that are out there that do some very artistic stuff, silhouette type stuff. And I'm not that guy. I just shoot like a rail fan, the way I see it on the rails, and mainly because I just love the detail. I love taking like this picture of 219 and, drilling in and seeing the imperfections, seeing the rivets, the bolts, the hoses, all these intricate details that are on these things that you don't catch with the naked eye when they go by. So that's one thing I really enjoy about, the way, the things I'm looking for when I shoot, for sure.
Yeah.
So.
Excellent.
So we talked about candy corn. Here's some candy corn and kind of the controversial thing, but I'll tell you one thing, when you get into autumn colors up here in New England, they pop. They really stand out. So this is some switching operation in the larger photo. What you see in those hoppers is actually calcium chloride being delivered from Rochester, New York, to a company called Vaporizer. I don't know if you know this, John, but they make this stuff called ice melt. I don't think you have to worry about it so much where you're at, but so they make ice melt, and they bag it right there in Plainfield, right from basically behind my house, and maybe a little bit more towards the south, but it's right here within the Plainfield operation. And I actually model this operation on my switching layout that I'll talk about hopefully in a little bit.
We have that here. It's called a margarita. That's what makes ice melt.
Oh, is that what you use that for?
Yeah, that's what we use
for. Yeah. But yeah. So yeah, it's Mini Prince is talking about the colors, and it really is. It pops. It really does. But sadly, it came, it's covering up a really great scheme. If it was no scheme, that'd be fine. But it's covering up one we really loved. But nonetheless, here it is, and enjoy it. But like I said, there's still some of these running around. You can see again in them autumn colors. This is on the Willimantic branch in Baltic, the 4004. The leaves are still on the trees, but a lot on the ground as well. You can see it's kicking them up as it's heading from Plainfield to Willimantic, making a connection with the New England Central there.
There's an interesting observation. I'm taking that as an observation and not as much as a question, right?
Yeah. I think so. I think that, that in turn, knowing the prototype, understanding the prototype, I think for most of what I've seen with model railroading, it's like an simulation or an emulation or whichever word you want to use. You're trying to emulate what the railroad does. You have to do it to scale. You have to do it with compression. There's some things you have to take out, but ultimately we're just trying to do what they're doing on a much smaller scale. And the more you spend, photographing, spending time capturing it, looking at it, what are they doing? What does it look like when they're doing it? Certainly should be able to be applied to a model railroad and help and guide you. So here's some stuff that you may also not know. This is called snow, John.
Well, we can make jokes about that because we don't have a lot of snow where I live, but California is a really large state, and we have something called the Sierra Nevada Mountains.
You do.
And we get a lot of snow, even on the Shasta, pass on the way up to Oregon gets snowed in sometimes. So,
right.
And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, even down where Mike lives in Southern California, we have the Grapevine, and I forget the name of that pass, but they have snow service up there too.
Yeah.
So this photo was taken actually during a unexpected snowstorm, and you can see the conductor on the step there, and I call him conductor engineer because he's qualified for both. Both are qualified, and they'll switch off every other day. One will engineer, the other guy will be on the ground, and he actually, when I posted the photo, and he says I was so underdressed. Yes, like I was not prepared for snow. He was freezing. But they're heading down what they call the Moose Up, and this is all in Plainfield, Connecticut, and they're heading down the Moose Up, which was the former connection that was called the old Hartford, Providence, and Fishkill, and it went all the way to the Northeast Corridor out in Rhode Island, connected out near Providence. So no longer does that. It dead ends about a half a mile up ahead of where the locomotive is now, but they're going into E. Osterman propane with some loads and switching out that industry. So maybe that one on the right is about as artsy as I've got with photography, and that was taken from that bridge. This bridge had a very interesting step-like feature to it, so I climbed up there and caught the P&W. This is in Worcester, Massachusetts. I was going through and, kind of the way the Providence and Worcester Railroad is going. You can see it on the bridge fading away. And that's seemingly what's happening with the old P&W and the colors. They're fading away, but it's lucky to get a pair of Jeeps that were doing a Saturday extra switching job in the Worcester yard. So caught them there and caught a piece of that bridge as well on that photograph.
Nice.
This is all New England Central. New England Central, again, was where I kind of got started. And I still, although I model that mostly as a Providence and Worcester, my love is still NECR. I just love the blue and golds of NECR. And you can see them in some of the smaller photos, the blue and gold theme, scheme. Here's an older XCN, now, Rail America unit. NECR was owned by Rail America for some time, and a few of these made their way into the NECR roster, and I was able to catch it at this place. I just enjoyed that welcome to the ledge kind of thing and caught them going over that bridge. This is up near Stafford, Connecticut, northwest part, northeast part of Connecticut, near the Massachusetts border, just before they cross in and go to Palmer. Again, I talked about my affinity for the wide cabs that P&W have. These are all former ATSF B40-8Ws that the railroad acquired. They actually acquired them, I believe, 2 of them were in war bonnet paint, and one may have been repainted BNSF, but I'm not. Oh yeah, that one was painted in the BNSF H2 scheme, and they took and they patched out over the BNSF and used a paint roller to put a PW on it, and it ran for quite a few years with just the paint roller PW over the top of it. Eventually, it was sent in and repainted to the G&W corporate paint. But the 4005, I think, immediately went to the paint booth because it was in the worst of shape. And then the 4006 followed, and the 5 and 6 are really my 2 favorites. Just that wide cab, but 4-axle look, the gull wing cab, just a really cool look, on a railroad that's right here in my neighborhood. And they just, the bigger billboard and bigger font PW on the front. They're the only ones that have like the wingtip ends on the PW logo. So just a really cool. I'm glad they're still in their original paint. They're looking a lot more faded today, but definitely my 2 favorites. And of course I have those in HO scale. So my favorite ones on the layout, and they run in consist. And every time I see 4005 and 6 consisted, and consisted the correct way, I've told a few conductors they need to just weld the coupler shut and leave them just as is and never move them. But that doesn't seem to have happened. So a rare treat when you get to see them together. And then I took a job, and then I've had a job, but it really started to kick up when I was sent out. I was given a territory of all of New England and New York State. And I would take the camera with me, and some of the cool places I got to go, like this is Cape Cod. The bridge that you see in the lower left is the Cape Cod Canal. And that's our Army Corps of Engineers created the Cape Cod Canal to, for navigational purposes, to get around Cape Cod. So you don't have to go around the big arm. You can cut across it. If you think of Massachusetts, it's got the big arm at the end of it where Cape Cod is, all the way to the tip of Provincetown. Now the ship's coming out of Boston, going to New York. Instead of having to go all the way around, they go through the Cape Cod Canal, and they can cut across that and save time and obviously fuel. What you see for a train is the Mass Coastal, what they call the energy train, basically picking up trash to go get burned. And on that bridge is nautical flags that spell out Lobster Trap, which is the restaurant that is just off screen to the right. So the Lobster Trap painted that bridge, and you see the Mass Coastal going over it. Another one I've caught on the road, the Massachusetts Central. If anybody's a Boston and Maine fan, they're going to see this and pick that out right away. Very much Boston and Maine tribute that the Mass Central's put on here. So New York, this is a great spot. This is really where the bigger traffic for, coming out of southern New England. If you want to start to see bigger road freights, you really need to start heading, west of here, either south or southwest of here to catch it. And this is all New York, catching CSX freight coming out of Selkirk and heading across towards Buffalo, Mohawk subdivision. Again, very fortunate. I've been to be out in the field, and what's even cooler is I have a great boss, and I worked for him for 9 years, and now I'm back working for him again after a few-year hiatus. And he actually enjoys the rail photography, so I don't get in trouble too much. And I do my job, and I do my job very well. But he's a big fan of me sending him some photographs every once in a while to check in and make sure I'm still out there taking photos.
Hey, maybe print a book for him.
Yeah, he has one. He's actually one that bought the book.
Oh, perfect.
So, yeah, so he's a big fan of it, and I play fair. Don't worry. Housatonic Railroad. This one's a very cool one. It's got like a Chicago Northwestern theme to it. This is out in Canaan, Connecticut, a short line that runs out there. I don't think many of these are running anymore. These were quite a few years ago, but the Canaan station there and the bigger photos, a kind of a nice landmark, historic landmark. It burned and they rebuilt it, which was really cool to see. It would have been easy at that point just to take the bulldozer, finish the rest, and put a newer building, but they restored it back to its original look, which is a really neat look out in the northwest corner of Connecticut. So another fun railroad. And what you see on the ground, excuse me, if you look at the bottom left, that's not snow, that's limestone. And they're coming out of a limestone quarry where they actually ship out, which is kind of rare for our area, usually where, we take loads and send back empties. Well, this is the opposite. They're actually loading limestone out in that corner of Connecticut and shipping it. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, this is the New England Central coming out of, again, those former CN. Somebody with a little better expertise in the comments probably could tell me what locomotive that is, but it still has all the class lights on it from its service in Canada. But it, coming out of Palmer Yard and heading south towards Willimantic. And I did take this at a crossing. I did not stand in the gauge. I stood at a crossing, and I'm using my 70-200 f2.8 lens, zooming all the way in. They were a lot farther away than the picture indicates.
Thanks for clarifying that, because safety is an important thing that I think a lot of times people that are out foaming, that's what I'm going to call it, don't pay attention to. So good job.
You and I had a great conversation last night about this, and I'll just recap. Safety is at the utmost. I mean, this is serious stuff. I mean, we love to look at this stuff, but it's hardened steel moving at an amazing amount of force. It's serious business. This isn't just, like your model train. If it hits your finger, it doesn't hurt. It hurts a train more than that. This is the real deal. And I take safety extremely seriously, and you'll find out here in a few moments exactly why. So
one of the comments, Ray, that I told someone one time, I don't remember where I was or what I was doing, but I was out with my camera equipment, and someone came over, and someone who was, authority or whatever, like, hey, just be careful. I'm like, hey, I'm here to make videos. I'm not here to get killed. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the attitude.
Right.
Yeah,
so this is, again, my grandparents, this is Clemson University. So this is South Carolina. I think this is part of Lake Hartwell, but I could be mistaken on that. I don't remember as much anymore about spots and positions, but this is like 2019, I would say. And, was standing down under a bridge in a good spot, and some really great traffic going through, and I was able to capture the NS with a but I think we'd call that maybe a north or an eastbound move there across the bridge.
I like the reflections. Very cool.
This one, although it's BNSF, was actually a surprise shot. This was taken in the Guilderlands in New York. This is a unit train heading from Cicero to a power generating plant with crude oil. And I like the photo so much. And I know the biggest BNSF fan I know is Mark Herrick here in Windham, Connecticut. And I said, I'm going to print this out and I'm going to give it to Mark. I just love the light. I love the look. And then the symmetry of all of the unit train cars, the tops of them. It just came out. I couldn't have asked for better lighting, better anything with this. So I printed it out and I gave it to him and framed, and I was expecting it to go up in his train room. I said, hey, here you go, put it up in the train room. Well, he showed it to his wife, and then somehow it was decided that it was too good for there. So it now graces their dining room. So that was quite an honor to get a wall in their dining room with a BNSF photo. And what an awesome wife that is to be able to put a train photo up in the house too. That's super cool support. So
I have a quick question, Ray.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned it, but I didn't hear you, or I wasn't paying attention because I was trying to look at the comments, but did you say where this was?
I did. Guilderland, New York.
New York. Okay. Is that a normal area for BNSF? I thought they were more of a Western railroad.
Yeah, it's a through train. So it was coming out of Cicero, Illinois. So out near Chicagoland. And, it's through power. So it was a through power unit train. I'm not sure where it originated, but CSX, it's probably a CSX crew running the BNSF power.
Oh, I see. Through power on a CSX line. Okay,
yep,
I get
exactly.
it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it was going all the way down to the Eddystone generating plant down in Pennsylvania. So they're making the route across, and then they'd hit the river line and head south and down into Pennsylvania. So yeah, that's some really cool to get some. That's why it's really even cool to go out towards New York, because then you can get that mix of foreign power. We see UP through trains. You can see some CP or CPKC now, or a lot of neat mixed unit stuff out there. So a little catching the snow while I was working out in New York, calling on customers. And then it was like this massive snow squall, which gave me a great opportunity to catch one blowing through the snow. I don't know how other rail fans feel about Amtrak, but I'll take the picture, but I'm never really a big fan of passenger trains. And I don't know why. It just, I'm just a big freight guy, but if I'm standing there and, especially if I'm freezing, I'll definitely at least capture the photo. So I did capture the top right is in Amsterdam, New York, near the Amsterdam Amtrak station. And that's the Mohawk River in the background. And then the bottom right photo is in Fonda, New York. That's the old courthouse in Fonda, New York, along the Mohawk Division, that line that runs from Buffalo to Selkirk. There's my wide cabs going over the Shetucket River in Windham, Connecticut. And I was able to catch. I was always wanted to get it. Didn't get it great, but I'd love to have got it out of what we call stick season, where there's nothing on the trees. But I think it also offered an opportunity with nothing on the trees for a little bit better visibility to that bridge. Then I headed way north. This is Swanton, Vermont, on the NECR. Canadian National brings a train down to St. Albans, does an interchange with NECR there, goes back over the Canadian border. There's a massive scanner at the border where the train will pass through the scanner for Border Patrol customs. And then it makes its way down there. So I was able to catch them at that spot, and convenient to get the sign in there. So I'll always remember where that photo was taken. Of all the locomotives, I mentioned I'm a big fan of the wide cabs, but this locomotive in particular became my absolute favorite, the 3855. And I can't tell you why, maybe because I just kept seeing it so often. And I include this photo because this was actually taken in my backyard in Plainfield. So I had my favorite locomotive show up in my neighborhood unexpectedly. It was heading to Palmer for some kind of inspection or maintenance. And, being all G&W now, they do some repairs and whatnot up at the P&W engine house with all the G&W railroads. So it's really neat to see. She's in tough shape. You can see the doors all beat up and the paint peeling, but boy, I hope that some other Atlas did a run of these. They did okay, but boy, I just know some of these new manufacturers could just absolutely knock this out of the park. So I keep my fingers crossed, and I keep dropping hints at all the other manufacturers. I hope that maybe one day they'll produce a GP38 in the NECR scheme. I think it's just a really neat scheme, and the blue and gold really kind of pops.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's really cool.
Again, some more Riverline photos. This is in Newburgh, New York. Again, working and taking pictures of trains, catching some northbound freight on the CSX River Line. This one found by accident. This is the old Pan Am OCS train, the office car. This is in the yard in Portland, Maine. And every once in a while, I think I have a pretty good, strong magnet for trains. Like some days I wonder if it's broken, but I'll just have such good luck. And I think that's comes into a play for a lot of photographers, is unless you have really good inside information, is to be able to have that luck enough to come upon things. And I just happened to come out of a driveway. I was calling on a customer, and I said, I'm just going to take this road and look. And I went down, and boom, it was sitting just like this. And I said, oh, that's awesome. And it was kind of rainy, had a cloudy, so kind of made everything kind of shiny and gave that look. So I took a photo, and then eventually it took off. I took the picture of the rear of the train, and You can kind of see the old Portland yard. This is an old Boston and Maine yard up in Portland. A lot of history. You can, if you ever get up to Maine, definitely check this yard out. You can see remnants of the old roundhouse and everything else up there. A lot of great railroad history out of that area. This is up in Vermont, a little bit more towards the fall time, and a train I just happened to catch. This is a wood chip train coming back to St. Albans. I think they dropped off, or they were picked up loads or something. I can't remember exactly what the scenario of this was. Does the Pan Am Railway have flight attendants? The Pan Am Railway is no more, just like the airline. The Pan Am Railway is also gone away. But yeah, it was also very strange to have a railroad named after a defunct airline, but that's quite a story. Again, some just, catching freights. And again, if you get the theme already, catching them as they go and just trying to get some good or some decent kind of composition to it. A lot of my mentorship actually came from non-rail photographers, and one of them was Joe Belanger up in Canada, who was more of a sports photographer and a portrait photographer. But I learned a lot from that man. He passed away, and it's sad I never talked to the guy in person. It was always online. And that's how we met. And we, as much as I said I wanted to get up to Canada to meet him, he lived in Belleville, Ontario, and he passed away from cancer, and never got to meet him in person. But boy, he just gave me some amazing advice, and more than technical advice. It was really about mental and confidence and stuff. So yeah, and I didn't, Heath, I just use what's available. I'm not big into, lighting kits and all that. I just use the light that's available to me and shooting the sunlight. This is, oh boy, I've French's Hollow Falls in New York. Really neat spot. Waterfall, and
that's very dramatic scenery there.
Yeah. So one of my favorite photos I've taken. So we talked about railfan safety, and I'm going to share a very quick story here, and I'm going to make it as quick as possible here. But during COVID, I went down to see my grandparents. We drove down, my mother and I, and I went out rail fanning like I typically do. And I said, I really want to get somewhere with some really cool scenery. And I got to this spot. I was driving along. It's right on the South Carolina, Georgia border. And in fact, that where I'm standing, I think that even Google Maps is calling it Toccoa, Georgia. So I pull in and I pull out both cameras. I put the harness on. I've got the double harness, my big camera on one side, the lens, a 7200. I got a smaller, shorter lens on the other. And a guy pulls in a white, I think it was a Ford Explorer, and camera comes out. He sets up the tripod, then another camera, then another camera. He's got like 4 cameras set up. I was like, wow, this guy's really into it. I'm like, I'm just got a couple cameras. This guy's got 4. Then he pulls the drone out and he sets the drone up. I'm like, wow, this guy's something serious. So I said, I'm going to go over and talk to him. And I said, hey, got something big, something major coming? And I forgot what the train symbols were, so I'm just making it up. He said, 28 R's down here and whatever, 37 R is on here, and they're going to meet, and one's waiting for the other to pass, blah, blah, blah. And I said, how the heck did you know that? He goes, dispatch screen. I went, dispatch screen? That must be a cool app. How do I get it? And he goes, no, that's the dispatch screen from Norfolk Southern. I'm Casey Thomason. I'm the official photographer for Norfolk Southern Railway. I went, oh, well, that makes a lot of sense. So he had all that inside information. So anyway, I walk up to the edge. Now I'm wearing khaki shorts, polo, wearing both cameras, and I can hear the train coming, and it's about to cross that bridge way out on the lake. And I said, you know what? I'm going to just take one step forward here. Down the embankment, there's a big riffraff rock stuff. I said, I'm just going to take one step down. I'm going to sit on this rock. Well, I took that one step down, and that step kept going. I slipped, and the weight of the camera swung forward, and I think it was just enough to mess my balance up enough, and I went all the way down that embankment and into the lake. I hit every single riffraff rock going down. Cameras are dragging and banging behind me, and pretty banged up. So I'm laying on the side of on my side with halfway in the lake. Thankfully, the cameras didn't go in. My radio I had went in the lake. My glasses went in the lake. So now I'm down there laying on my side, and I heard Casey yell, "Are you all right?" And I said, "Yeah, get your shots." So I'm laying there picking my belongings up out of the water and doing an inventory. Do I still have all my limbs? What did I hit? All of this to say, and Casey Thomason will always be my, rail photography hero, not because he takes phenomenal photos, but he stayed there and made sure I got up out. He climbed halfway down. He grabbed my stuff after the train had passed. I got no photos, and now I have a scar for life on my leg. And for those that may be a little leery with blood, I caution you to maybe look away for a second. But I had a massive puncture wound on my left leg. If you look at my sneakers, you can even see holes. Those weren't there, towards the toe of my shoe there. You can see to the left side, to the right side of it, there's holes in there. That's all from me going down that hill. And I had a puncture wound that was probably, I don't know, maybe a half-inch deep into my leg. It just missed my shin and punctured my leg. All to say, what the heck difference would have made if I would have shot it standing up versus sitting down and lost 5 or 6 feet? It would have made no difference at all. But again, I lost situational awareness. I wasn't thinking, wasn't looking at what this scenario was, wasn't thinking. I'm 1,000 miles from home. That's not the time to take chances. And I've caught myself a few other times, like down in Texas, tall grass area. Why would I want to walk through that? I have no idea what's, snakes or anything else in there. So again, just learn from me, the rail, you got to be careful, use extreme caution, and always be aware of your surroundings. Whether you're 300 yards from rail side, or if you're right up near the rail, you have to have situational awareness, know what's around, know what your footing is. And I think that was about the time that I really was able to sell the wife that maybe I should just get a drone and keep my feet on firm ground. And that's what I did. So, and I'll be honest, in my rail photography, I was kind of like, I was anti-drone because I always thought it was like cheating. Like, they're cheating. Like, I have to figure out where to go. But then I got one and my mind completely changed. I was like, wow, this just opens up like this whole other dimension when you're able to gain altitude and see things. It's amazing. So this is actually just me doing some practice shooting in our neighborhood. That's the Plainfield Yard. The straight line that you can see on the right-hand edge of the photo is the Moose Up. And then obviously that's the Plainfield Yard. They used to actually have some paint booths there as well. They were able to paint locomotives in that building, but that's the Plainfield Terminal. So
I want to say something about drones real quick.
Yeah.
I don't remember who it was who said this to me, but it was someone who had bought I think it might have been my friend Goofy Gary, who's also been quite the photographer for a long time. He said that a drone is basically a 400-foot tripod you can set down anywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's actually a very interesting way to put it. So yeah. I finally got one too last year, and it really changes your perspective on, what shots are what you can do. Right. So,
and what's amazing is it doesn't take much altitude. You talk about 400 feet, but even the difference of 75 is amazing.
Oh, sure.
If you can get up just above and a little bit of downward angle on things. Yeah. And then, again, it's a safety thing for me as well. But don't get me wrong. I have my Part 107. It took me a little bit to get that. It's for me, it was a challenge to be able to study the book and get that. I follow all the rules because I don't want to ever have to talk to the FAA. I never want to have a meeting with them. I don't want to have a phone call with them. I don't want to ever have to have any contact with them. I do everything on the up and up and fly as safe as possible because 1, I don't want to lose my aircraft, and 2, I don't want to talk to the FAA.
Yeah, that would be a bad conversation. It's like these railroader guys. They don't want to talk to the FRA either.
Right.
Here,
yeah.
Actually, let me bring one on. Mike, how do you feel about talking to the FRA?
I don't talk to them. I refuse to talk to them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of drones, I don't know if you guys are aware of this or maybe your viewership is, but they actually use drones to spy on us. I use the word spy. They have drones and they'll send them up to see if we're complying with regulations, not the FRA, but our own company.
Yeah.
Right. I've heard about drones in yards and stuff like that.
Yeah. So this is where I.
Oh,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Mike. No, go ahead, Mike.
Oh, I was just going to say, fortunately, our yard is at the end of a airport runway, so you can't take a drone in that area.
It already has its privileges.
I only work with active runways nearby.
Nice. Good. Nice to be in restricted airspace.
Carry on.
So this is where I live, and for folks, I was telling you, I'm stuck between two branch lines. So we can see right here. This is where you can see the train is on the Norwich branch facing south, and if you see there's a road, the creek, the road, and then there's a line of trees. I live behind it in one of the white houses back there. So if you don't believe I'm stuck between two rail lines, that's exactly where it is. And then the Willimantic is about in the tree line where you see the houses end. That's where the Willimantic branch is, and it all ties together kind of up where you can see where the gray area is way on the top right corner of the rail line, the Norwich. So that's home sweet home for me. That's Plainfield, Connecticut. And again, using the drone and being able to capture some really cool photos from really my backyard. And again, a shot of a little bit more late at night. This is the old Inner Royal Mill. And I think that's NR2 heading out at some point. And that's Plainfield, Connecticut. And then I started, take it on the road. This is the Mohawk River. I would say an eastbound intermodal train going over the bridge there. And boy, drones like I said, they just opened up a whole new avenue for me. This is East Deerfield, Massachusetts. And it's funny, this train was sitting up on the bridge and I just flew up and I took this photo. I did not see in the viewfinder that there was an arm sticking out. So he's adjusting the mirror in the picture. And then they took off.
Wondering who the idiot with the drone is.
Yeah. Who the heck is that guy? And I'm under the bridge. There's a road that goes underneath it. So I'm under the bridge, standing practically under my drone, taking that photo. And then there's another shot of it as well as it's, ready. And I think this was the one you used as the cover photo for tonight, the thumbnail. So that was, again, off the drone. And then this is, I call this one Sunrise in Ringgold. I took it down to Texas and caught this UP train heading up towards just before the Oklahoma border in North Texas. So I really love Texas. It's hard because the scenery isn't like this outstanding. It's not like New York where you get the waterfall, kind of the French's Hollow, and you don't get the mountainous view, but it's just so broad and flat. And it just absolutely amazes me, especially coming from New England where it's just covered in trees, to see like this just vast amount of land. It's hilly there. I mean, you can see it even in the train. You can see there's the hilliness to that line, but it's just so amazing that you can see so far, just getting up a little bit of altitude like I have there. But as much as, the drone, I still love the hand cameras, and I still get them pulled out and being able to capture like this BNSF train going through Texas. And big railroading makes our railroading here in New England look like a hobby when it comes to size of trains and everything else. If you're familiar with Justin Boots, this is Justin, Texas, the home of Justin Boots. And this is the Fort Worth sub, and they're heading towards Alliance Yard in Fort Worth. One of my favorite spots to catch something. Justin Seed Company behind it. One that, if you're any bit of a rail fan that's been in Texas, they'll recognize Saginaw. I think they may have changed the diamond configuration there. UP and BNSF crossed there. It may have changed since this photo, but And some really cool stuff, going up more north. You see on the old Santa Fe side of things, the Gainesville station, catching action through there. There's an Amtrak service still on that line. That's an Amtrak stop, but some more local stuff. Always great to see a good, happy rail crew. The guy was waving a bunch of times to me, and it was really, really nice. I try not at times. One of the things I do avoid, because I know, and Mike, you kind of hinted on, the supervisors will hide in the trees and try to catch guys doing the wrong thing, so they get really kind of leery on who's taking pictures of them. And most times if I catch a crew, I try to catch their back so they're not really identifiable and that kind of thing. But this guy was more than happy to pose for photographs, and this is Tilcon employees. This is an operation down in Branford, and they call it actually the Branford Steam Railroad is the name of it, but it's a Tilcon operation hauling stone and aggregate product.
Yeah, oftentimes it's like, who's this guy driving up now? If you don't know, that's one of the more things. If I see a camera, I'm pretty sure it's not a manager, but somebody just drives up all of a sudden. Sometimes I'll make an encounter and find out who they are or something.
Yeah. And I would hate to be, it's kind of hard. It's like it's got to be weird for the group to, I mean, for rail fans or railroaders like yourself, where, you're doing a job, but somehow it becomes fandom. Like there's a fandom aspect to it. And I can't imagine, it's got to be awkward at times.
Oh, we have a regular, I call it my fan club. I have several people that bring their kids out, and some they're between 16 and 10, and plus some other adults. Last 5 years there's a whole group of people out where we're at.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we're all pretty friendly with them.
Mike, sorry, this is a little bit off topic from the slideshow here, but as a railroader, Mike, I've heard of some railroader guys getting pissy about rail fans coming out with their video cameras and stuff because they're afraid that someone might see them do something that they're not supposed to do. Is that something that you guys talk about at all?
Oh yeah, we actually asked if anybody's going to put anything online. We actually look at. I actually have them send it to me first, and so we can go. No, don't put that online or something.
So if it's a rando, someone that you don't know, you can't.
Well, then we're just out of luck, But I don't think the company goes on too many sites. There are employees that have gotten in trouble by taking pictures like from the inside of the cab and then posting them and then putting hashtag Union Pacific, and they find out about it. They've actually literally fired people. Some guy was FaceTiming live from a locomotive a couple years ago. I mean, that's his own fault.
That's really bad news. Yeah,
it is.
Things not to do. Yeah.
Sorry, Ray, just a tangential thought I had.
Oh, no.
I've actually been in one of these GADX units. They're kind of nice.
Then Allentown, Pennsylvania. I took a job down there. I was working there for about a year, going back and forth between there and Allentown. So I've kind of fallen in love with the NS. Just that black and white scheme, the Mr. Ed kind of stuff going on. The
horse.
Oh, yeah. So I enjoy that. Of course, that's pretty neat that a UP unit is mixed in the consist and the general freight going across the this is just on the other side of Albertus in Pennsylvania. And then this was a fun trip. I got to spend some time with my good friend Joe Mame, who is actually modeling this. This is the CNF's secondary, which is an unbelievably awesome switching opportunity to make out of a model railroad. But him and I decided, well, Joe, if you're going to model it, let's go see it. And I brought the drone down. I brought my regular ground cameras and snapped some photos from him, or for him, and gave him some opportunity to see some that. And I actually shot a backdrop photo for him. He'll eventually be looking for. He used the drone, flew that. So you talk about that tripod thing in the drone. That's an awesome opportunity. I've shot a couple different backdrops. I shot one for Don Iris and I shot one for Joe Mame, where I just used the drone. I set it up about the same height as I would use a ground camera, but now I can stay on the same plane. Now I can stay basically the same distance away and fly it and take the backdrop photos, bring it into Photoshop and merge it all together and make them one solid backdrop. So that's been a lot of fun to do.
So the shot in the lower right-hand corner is a drone shot, or all these are drone shots?
The bottom right is the only drone shot.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
That's
Actually, Mark, go ahead, John.
I was going to say, that's not to say though, Mike, that you couldn't fly a drone low like that. Although you'd have to really be careful and make sure that there aren't any people around that you might buzz, you know?
Right.
What about the wind from the train?
That could actually,
yeah.
You'd be surprised at how reactive and stable a good aircraft is. You know, and obviously the heavier the aircraft, the better off you are. Like some of the smaller, the minis have a little bit more effect than say a bigger aircraft, a bigger airframe. But my airframe handles pretty well. But I don't do a lot of video either. I shoot, stills, so it doesn't really, if it catches it off, not. But I can shoot video, and it does a great job of stabilizing. This is a ground camera again down in Albertus. This is actually back in Connecticut, Jewett City, catching a southbound going through Jewett City. Again, doesn't take much altitude. I'm not overly high here, but you can always tell a drone photo from Ray because you can see that watermark in the bottom, the one with the UP wings that I put. That tells me I'm flying. I use that as the watermark.
Oh, I see the difference now. Huh.
Yeah. So it tells me if I use the drone or not, I guess. There's my wide cabs properly put together in Plainfield. Caught that recently. They just recently changed the configuration there. They eliminated a crossover and made this new switch configuration on the ground. So pretty neat to see that. I'm locally. This was a really recent, and what's kind of neat about this really isn't that it's a BNSF unit. Here's another unit train going through, kind of similar to that one I talked about earlier. But what was neat to me was you can find just a little hint of the former Conrail in this photo. If you look real closely at the bolt on the triangular sign, look at the bottom bolt and it's in Conrail blue, the head of it. So
look at that.
So I thought that was pretty neat, former Conrail line. I guess Conrail used those triangular signs to mark areas where they would have to lift for flanges and any kind of obstruction near the track for plowing snow. Is what that triangular sign was supposedly done. That's what I was told, at least. Old Alco still in service. This was only taken a few weeks ago. This is the Battenkill Railroad, and this is my magnet worked. And I'll talk about settings here in a second, Heath. This Alco, I just happened to be driving through in Eagle Bridge, New York. I just left Mechanicville and was looking for a customer and happened to be on these guys. They were doing a switching job, and they told me that there is no real schedule. They just work when they need to. And it was real neat to catch this. So really neat story about this locomotive. The conductor told me the rough story that it's owned by another gentleman that's Southern New England, but it's operated by Battenkill Railroad. And the owner of the locomotive needed a place to store it. Battenkill needed a locomotive. So basically they used the locomotive to pay the storage fees.
Oh, perfect.
So
yeah, and I'm going to bring up a quick point here. You're talking about, I see you can't see this guy's face, but they just came out with a new rule since January that if that was a main line switch, that guy would be subject to a disciplinary action for what he's doing right there. Now I see it looks like it's in a yard to me, but if you're more than 5, you have to stand 5 feet from the switch, believe it or not, and 20 feet from a main line switch. So maybe your idea of photographing people from behind or not looking at the camera is a good idea. But I noticed in most photographs, I can't even hardly tell who people are anyways.
Yeah. Well, hopefully this gentleman looked like he may have been a person that would have fired. He might be ownership because it's super small railroad, but that's why I always try to, again, unless they are like looking or want to pose or something,
Right.
I always try to give them a little bit of, I try to act a little discretion.
No, I kind of get it. I like it. I like your idea. It was, yeah. If somebody says fine, good, but if they don't,
Quick capture in the Gainesville yard in Gainesville, Texas. Kind of neat to see that. What do they call that? Fake bonnet. I think the BNSF guys do with the not saying Santa Fe on it. They'll call it a fake bonnet.
Oh, okay.
And I think it's actually assigned to that yard because I've seen it several times. I think it's assigned to maintenance away work. And then obviously the yard units that are sitting there in Gainesville.
That one on the left has a really interesting arrangement of antennas on the cab roof. That might even be a remote control unit, or well, actually no, I think it would have beacons or whatever flashers on it if it was remote, right?
I'd imagine it's some form of PTC. We'd have to ask Greg McComas at MacRail. I'm sure he'd be able to tell us what those antennas are.
Right.
But yeah. And then so I try to keep myself out of the photos as well, but this one I didn't. You can see me in the bottom left-hand corner in the rental vehicle flying here. Again,
okay.
Up and down in Texas, catching this on the Wichita Falls subdivision between Fort Worth and Wichita Falls and onward west, and so that's my rail photography.
Oh,
nice.
That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, so, we need to have the little can of applause there for it. That was great.
So Heath had a question about settings, and Heath, I'm probably not the best guy to tell you settings. I shoot a lot of my ground cameras starting at f8, and then I work my way from there. And I kind of follow a Scott Kelby. Scott Kelby's a pretty well-known photographer and an educator, and I let the camera make some decisions. So a lot of times I'll put it in aperture priority and let the camera make an ISO. I set my min maxes on ISO and I set my min maxes on shutter. I really want a faster shutter. Obviously, the faster the train, the faster I want the shutter to be. So I set the aperture. I let the camera make a decision. I set I want, at least 1/640 and try to get a good, decent speed. And if I'm in good light and the ISO is low enough, it's going to give me plenty of shutter to capture what I'm looking for. And I play around with that. And if it's a little bit darker, maybe I'll back the aperture down a little bit so that, I can get a little bit more speed out of that. And then the drone is already set up for f2.8. And, I kind of let that make its own decisions at times too. I don't go full automatic, but I'll kind of set an aperture priority, or I know it's an f2.8, and, I definitely, and then I shoot everything raw. I'm a big shooter of raw. And then I'll pull it in and then, adjust my lighting and color and all that other stuff. So I do like shooting in raw. So
what is it that you do for work?
I'm a salesman. So I do field sales. Right now I work for a company that sells, it's the service and parts arm of a trailer company that does tanker trailers. So I do all the parts, pieces, components of the tankers and fuel oil delivery trucks and that kind of stuff. So that's
So, did you mention, Ray, what the drone is, what you're using?
It's a DJI Air 2S.
Oh, okay.
And I'm really hoping, Air 2S. Yep. And I'm really hoping the government continues to allow us to fly DJI. I know there's been a few threats about taking DJI off the market. And
oh, really? What?
Yeah, there's been some craziness there. If you read about it, you see stuff pop up, please write your congressman. It's a bunch of nonsense. Be like, saying, well, we're not going to sell X car anymore because, whatever. So anyway, we don't want to make this a political show. I just want to keep flying my DJI drone.
I just hadn't heard about that because I have a DJI Mini 3 Pro or whatever. And I got the one that's small, so you don't have to technically have the license for it.
Yeah.
If it's under 249 grams or whatever, it's not considered.
Yeah, you don't have to register it.
Right.
Just remember, and I just clarify with folks, remember that the size of the drone doesn't matter when it comes to Part 107. It's what you're doing with it is what matters. And if it's anything that's beyond recreational flying requires a Part 107. And again, just know the rules. I just, it's just like anything else. Like when we talk about, rail fanning, or, it's all part of that. You want to be responsible rail fans for the sake of the rest of us. Like, don't be that doofus that walks in the gauge and messes around with railroad equipment, or stands on railroad equipment, or, violates no trespassing signs and all that. It hurts all of us. It's a hammer on all of us. So.
Yeah, I get it.
Dave's asking me if you go to other shows other than Amherst, right? I'm not sure why he asked me. Why don't I ask you, Ray? Do you go to other shows other than Amherst?
Yeah, you can tell Dave, John. Go ahead and tell Dave that.
I'll give him the message.
Yeah, I was in Texas for the NMRA National Convention and down there. I can concur with Mike that it was extremely hot.
Yeah, it was.
10 o'clock at night, it was still 100 degrees out.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, 4 a.m. we left for the airport to go home on Sunday. It was 89.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's absolutely
4 a.m.
Yeah. So who would want to live down there? It's uninhabitable at that temperature, isn't it?
Right.
It
and
really was.
If the heat doesn't kill you, the humidity certainly will.
Oh, it was. They say it's a dry heat. It was heat. That's all I remember.
Oh,
it was humid,
Is it actually dry in Texas? I thought they get humidity.
No, it's pretty humid. It's pretty humid. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, probably nothing like Connecticut, but I don't know. I've never been to Texas. Don't really plan on going.
My next big adventure will be the St. Louis RPM. I'll be going to that. So I've already got plans set to go for that. I don't know if I'll be at the NER convention. I think that's out in Rochester, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure about that one. And I definitely know I won't be making the trek out to Long Beach this year for the national. Probably the next time you see me at a national convention would be Chattanooga, Tennessee. I think that's going to be an absolutely awesome place to have a national convention, especially with scale trains down there, and then obviously all the awesome rail fanning, and then in events and museums and everything else. I think Chattanooga would be an awesome one.
And the Chattanooga choo-choo.
That's right. That's all going to be there. That was my very first model, the Tyco Chattanooga choo-choo. So it'll be good to be in Chattanooga.
Oh man. Are there any really exciting? I know I said we weren't going to talk about the podcast, and we haven't talked about it much at all. Are there any exciting guests or anything that you're thinking about or having coming up soon on any of your shows?
I've got an amazing. It's come to the point, John, where I actually manage the guests in a CRM, customer relations management software.
Wow!
Because I just get such amazing requests, and it's an awesome snowball. I'll talk to one guest, and at the end we'll chat, and they'll say, "Hey, you got to interview this guy, and this guy." So I'll write them down. And then I'll talk to one of those. Hey, you got 3 more people. And next thing you know, it's like the flywheel's cranking and the snowball is just picking up. So I had to have a place to put that snowball, and it's in a CRM. So I actually make contacts for everybody in the CRM. I put all the links to their Facebook pages, YouTube. I write notes. If I'm surfing Facebook and I see one of those guys, I'll jump in the CRM and, I'll put, hey, they're up to this or up to that. And then I'll go through the CRM, and, as I'm looking to book guests, I'll look through them. I'll look for what they're doing. And then, okay, this would be a good, interesting guest. And then I'll get them booked up. So cool. It's amazing. It's just absolutely amazing what's turned with the podcast, and amazing how many folks relate to the why story of model railroading, and how many want to tell their why story, tell how they got into the hobby and why they love what they love. It's really a cool thing. So I'm very fortunate to have a group of people that are willing to just continuously, feed me awesome guests and continue that pattern. So
this is an interesting question. I guess
does Heath like even listen to my podcast?
I don't think he listens to your podcast.
I don't think he does. I watch him every Wednesday night, but he doesn't watch my podcast at all. So that's all right. Maybe
you should have Mike on your podcast. I know this guy that works for the railroad out in Southern California. He might be an interesting guest.
See, there you go. A past guest recommending a new person. I got to fire up the CRM and add another contact. Yeah, that's for sure. That's awesome.
I need 2 more references now, because you said one person gives you 3. So I'm feeling like I'm really underperforming.
Yeah, I think we got to get Sydney on there and talk to her. I think she'd have some stories to tell.
She might have some stories to tell. I don't know if I want her to tell some of those stories. But though, actually, well, we talked about doing a second one of these years, and that could be fun.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. I believe she's been on the crossing gate, but I think it had more to do with women in model railroading. The SIG that's been created. So,
my wife has threatened to come on here and host Around the Layout special with all the wives of model railroaders.
That could be really fun. Actually,
they could all talk about how crazy we are,
or she could interview you on your show.
Yeah, I did that with Joe Mame. That was a lot of fun. If anybody,
I know you don't. Show. When you're doing an interview, you don't talk about yourself. I don't either. I mean, that's not what people are there for. So it's kind of like, but people want to know who you are too. That's one of the reasons I wanted to do this with you. So
yeah, this is fun, and this is a great format. Yeah, and whatnot. I'd love to tell you about my layout. Can I tell you about my layout?
Yeah,
because I got that on there. If you want to bring those slides back up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Here I am. Oh, I guess that's it. I'll just make that stuff go away. Let's add that back in. There it is.
All right. So let's talk about the Providence and Worcester and New England Central Interchange Model Railroads. So I love talking about my layout because I get to talk about Mike Du Bois. And Mike Du Bois was my mentor. Met him in the Worcester Model Railroader Club. He was the best thing to come out of that club is my relationship with Mike. And nobody wanted me to have a layout more than Mike did, maybe even me. He was a big fan of it. When I told him, I got a 4x8 that I have never finished, and blah, blah, he's like, we're going to build you a switching layout. He goes, so build the bench work, and then I'll come and I'm going to lay track. Now, Mike at that time was suffering. He had some health ailments. He had a failing kidney and some other issues that piled upon that. So Mike's time was short, and we all knew Mike's time was short. But Mike would bolster up enough energy to drive down from Dudley, Mass to my house, which was about a 40-minute drive, to help me start laying out track. He says, we want a lot of switching. We're going to do a lot of switching. Build a 2x10 bench, and we're going to put a lot of switching on it. So the pictures on the right are of Mike's layout. And these are photos that I took of Mike's layout. And he was a great modeler, really had a beautiful P&W 1970s based layout in his basement. And I'll go to the next photo. That was really kind of his signature scene. And a lot of fun. I told you this last night, but I'll tell the rest of the folks. The bridge in front is out of service because his mentor, who's the father of a good friend of mine, Kyle LeBlanc, Ron LeBlanc, apparently told him that the only bridge that's like that in New England burned. So then Mike proceeded to go get, I think it was lighter fluid, and basically sprayed it and lit it on fire. He scratch built it. He built it by hand, scratch built it. Every single piece was scratch built. But then he proceeded to burn it and put it out of service and put a bridge behind it. So that was a burned bridge that was sitting on his layout. He lit it on fire in the
talk about burning bridges. Why didn't he just use weathering powder or something? I mean, you can get that effect without.
What's more authentic though? And he just lit the thing on fire, and there it is. The track's all bent up, and
looks also like what's more fun.
Yeah, exactly. So he had Mike, and let me tell you, Mike was a lot of fun. Mike was just an absolute blast. But this is a little bit older. I don't have a whole lot of great photos of the layout right now, but it's a simple switching layout. And what I can tell you about it, let's start with I built the 2x10 bench. And while Mike was standing there and we were laying track on it, he goes, you could put a 2x6 bench over on the other side. So I built that and put it there. And then we needed a way to connect it. But obviously you can see my electrical panel is there. So I had to have something where if something needed to be done major, I can reach that panel no problem. I can open it. I can throw breakers. If you're an electrical guy and you're about to yell at me for blocking the electrical panel, save it, because I know I'm breaking a whole bunch of rules here. It's my house. Guess what? So, but I can reach in, I can throw breakers. There's not an issue there. But if there's work to be done, that middle section will actually lift out. I'll have to zip the rails and unhook the wires, but I can actually pick that section up and detach it from the two benches. And why it was built in two benches, because I knew eventually I'd like to finish my basement and I needed a way to be able to move this thing around and not have it permanently attached. And a lot of this happened because we knew what was going on with Mike. It was kind of it was rushed. it was a get it done so that Mike gets to see it in some form of status. And what I'm happy to say, and here's another look at it, that tunnel went through a couple changes because of it's a really sharp radius. I had to make some changes, and I'm still working on getting that to be exactly right. You can see there's a lot of switching, a lot of stuff going on in a 10-foot by 2-foot bench and a 2-foot by 12. But here's one thing I'm absolutely proud of, and that's Mike got to actually operate the layout. So I've got that one picture of him looking at it, the layout, trying to figure out how to build challenging switching. And now here's the other end of the photo, him sitting there kind of in the same pose, figuring out how the heck to switch it now that he's created this nightmare. So I got to laugh that, Mike wanted a big challenge and Mike got a big challenge, and now it's challenging him. But sadly, the two gentlemen you see here, Joe Grissetti overworking my yard, and Mike Du Bois are both no longer with us. Wow. Both have passed away, but it's a memory that'll last a lifetime with me, and the times I spent with Mike, and obviously with Joe Grissetti, one of the operators from what we call the Tri-State Railroaders group. Got a chance to operate my layout in the form that it was in. But I can, here's again, this is a second operating session. You can see our, the gentleman operating our layout to the front is Kyle LeBlanc. Mark Herrick is next. And then Joe and Mike are both standing next to each other over in the yard. I can keep 3 operators busy for about 2.5 hours on this small layout, switching, moving trains, interchange trains, sorting cars in the yard. I've got a scenario that is challenging enough to keep people busy for 2.5 hours. So I'm pretty proud of that. Pretty proud that, within a small layout, I can do that and be a part of the operating group here. And, the Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts group that we have. And, and so happy that I got to be able to spend all that time with Mike and learn from him, the laughs that we had. I can hear him even today. He would so just the things that happened, and this was all before the podcast, and just how tickled he would be, with all of the things that have happened since then. But he walks with me forever, and that's why I always love talking about my layout, because I get to talk about Mike and share those memories with him. And cherish the people that are around you, because they're not going to be there forever. We've lost yet another one with Tony Donatelli in our group. Cherish every moment. You get a chance to run on a layout, absorb it, try to be present in it. And because that layout's not going to be there forever. You talked about guys that are taking their layouts down over on your side of the country, and, Jack Burgess and all those. If you get a chance to go there, soak it all in, because they all seem to have the same ending, which is a dumpster. And, make sure you catch it all before that happens.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's one of the things that we're talking about. I mentioned that Jack Burgess wasn't going to take his layout out just yet, but they're looking to try to get it to a place where we will be preserved for future generations to see it. Because I don't know if you've ever seen it. Have you ever been out here at all, Ray, out to my area at all?
I have not been the farthest. I've been to California, but an airport doesn't count, does it? Ontario.
I don't know. I mean, you didn't spend
but no, I haven't spent much time there. I should.
Yeah,
but I haven't yet.
His layout is really, it's kind of a pioneer layout. And what I mean by that is he took this idea of modeling a prototype to the extreme. I don't know that I've ever seen or even heard of a layout that's as prototypical, meaning if there was a building in a place, it's there, and it's a scaled down version of that building as it was in August of 1939. That's another thing. It's very specific to the date. It's a month in a year. And I mean, that's a whole different issue or topic that we could discuss for hours, which is choosing eras and all that. But so you're right, though. Most layouts don't end up in a museum or in a place other than like a dumpster or whatever, because the people that inherit the property or the people that buy the property, they don't value it. So
no, it's hard to sell a house that way. We went through that with, again, Don Iris up here. He had a beautiful layout in Scituate, Rhode Island, and we'll be in a conversation about the layout, and he's like, "Oh, I really missed that layout." And I said, "Nobody misses it more than I do. I missed the whole darn thing because he had taken it down by the time I really connected with the group." But yeah, it's outstanding layouts, but unfortunately, a lot of them don't move well. They don't transfer well. They're really meant to be in the places that they were built, but and that's one thing, to talk about the podcast. And one of the powerful things that we get to do is, as I explore the why, as we're talking to guests, it becomes like a journal of why they built their layout, and it really is another way of capturing the story of these, because again, they don't last forever. They do have their demise, but you can catch and know the stories and basically learn for yourself. And it's amazing what you learn when you start hearing other model railroaders talk about what they're doing. It helps you focus in on what you want to do. So
sure. Something else that goes away when a layout goes away, and I don't think enough people think about this, is that operating group. Now, depending, I mean, there are cases where that may not be true. Yeah. But for example, there's one layout out here that I covered for, the better part of 10 years. That was a garden scale layout that eventually turned into an operations based garden scale layout. And unfortunately, the guy that owned the property that it was on died, and the layout's gone now. Yeah. And I haven't seen some of the people that I would normally see at that layout since. So there are these social, this social fabric that goes with it. And I don't really think people think about that so much. But, because boiling it down, trains are cool, but I think we all go back for the company and the social interaction. So
come for the train, stay for the people. That's one of the ones we've heard many a times before, right? It's the trains are the trains are kind of the vehicle to the community. And
exactly.
It's kind of, even with the podcast, the same thing with the listeners. It's a community, and
for sure
with you, the same thing. It's a community. You've got a lot of great folks. I'm seeing comments tonight from some very familiar faces, and it all becomes part of that really grand community that makes this hobby very special.
For sure. Now, there is something else I need to mention that's going to be happening. If I remember right, it's at the Reading. It's somewhere in Pennsylvania. I'm sorry, I don't know the details because I'm not going. But our YouTube friend Sparky 107 every year does something called a YouTube meet and greet. And I don't know if this is close enough for you to go to, Ray, but if you're able to, it would probably be a great place to meet some new friends and probably see some other people that you already know. And if anybody's interested, it's in May. I believe it's like, it's in the chat here, May 18th through the 20th in Reading, Pennsylvania.
Oh, that's cool. That's a great, talk about great railroading. It's a great place to be.
Right. Yeah. So he's going to be there and they're going to do the meet and greet. And if you want more information, Sparky 107 is a YouTube channel, and you can go to his YouTube page. There we go.
Yeah.
To find out more. I wanted to mention that because this is something that every year when he does it, I plug it on here because I know that the reach that I have with my channel is a little bit bigger than some, and somebody, watching out in your neck of the woods might want to go to that because they do all kinds of really fun stuff.
Absolutely.
And, he usually, I was going to say, do you want to go?
I was going to say, well, and in return, that's a phenomenal idea. I took the same idea and I've said, it's time us, podcasters do the same thing. So the podcast, the grand podcasters meet is going to be in Las Vegas at the Tropicana in July.
Really? That's something I could even drive to. It would take 13 hours to get there, or something.
The joke being here is that the Tropicana closed up about 3 months ago.
I don't know. I don't know anything about Las Vegas. So
Mike got it.
Mike's over here laughing, but we can't hear him because he muted himself.
He muted himself, but he knew what I was talking about. No, it's great. I think any opportunity to get together and whatnot. And I kind of pick on, I laugh when I think of the YouTube thing, and I'm only laughing in good spirit and I've said this to Heath, like I can imagine the YouTube meet and greet is like 40 cameras all aimed at each other shooting a live video, and like there's like no bandwidth left because everybody's live streaming.
It's ironic. because I went to the YouTube meet and greet last year, and it wasn't really like that. Like there were not. Now, when a train came by, full foam, happened, right? So
it'd be like us podcasters getting together. Podcasters would get together, you wouldn't get a word in edgewise. We'd just be talking all over the top of each other, right?
Bring your microphone with you.
Right? We'd all be walking around with mics, and they're walking around with cameras doing live.
It's BYOM. Bring your own microphone.
Bring your own microphone. Bring your own camera. Bring your own streaming device.
Brother.
Yeah. But no, that's phenomenal. And Sparky, I know, does an awesome job with that. And I've seen a couple of times they've done that YouTube meet and greet, and that's again, it's great. It's great to have a community. Like, you and I have bounced ideas off each other. And, we had a show here where we talked about this, with Mike and Andy from Second Section, and, just sharing ideas. It's good to have like people and know that there's like people out there, not only, in model railroading, but, these hobbies within the hobby, and being able to say, hey, how do you do this? Or what do you got an idea for promotion? And, you and I chatted last night and doing the same thing. Just, being able to spitball ideas back and forth is certainly an awesome thing to be able to do. And, I hope that the podcast helps bring people together to do the same thing, whether they're, in or outside of the podcast doing that. It's phenomenal to be able to connect people like you're connecting people here tonight.
Yeah. One of the nice things about it, I think, Ray, is that it doesn't have to be a competition.
Oh,
and frankly, it isn't a competition as far as I'm concerned. There's plenty of people who will listen to you, and plenty of people who will watch what I'm doing. Sometimes they're the same people, sometimes they aren't. The important thing is that you're doing something you're passionate about, that you love. I am also. Mike is doing something he loves, and it's all about, putting it out there, because there's stuff that we can share stuff with people that they won't see or hear or experience otherwise. So we're in a position of I don't know. I'm going to go on about other stuff, and I don't want to do that because we're kind of at the end of our time here.
Yeah.
So,
let me just reiterate real quick that, it is no competition, just as much as model railroading isn't competition. Example, gentleman I just talked about, and I saw he popped up in here, I was watching, and glad to see him. Mark Herrick models the BNSF. Does he go over to John Parker and say, what are you modeling the BNSF for? I model the BNSF. It'd be crazy. It'd be crazy talk. Instead, what they do is they compare notes, they share information, they share a passion for the same railroad. And that's the idea. Cooperation and finding like-minded people is certainly a reassuring for hobbies like we have. That was my whole friendship with Mike the Boys. It was like I found somebody that was just as crazy as I am, and it felt good. Like him and I would like nerd out about these weird things, but he loved them too. And it's like, I'm not weird. He at least or maybe we're weird, but we're weird together. That's I think that's the important part.
This guy that I used to work with, and we had a great relationship. We would joke all day. It was joking. I mean, I'd go to work and we were just laughing the whole day. And he said that one time to me. He says, "You know what I like about working with you? You're the only one who's as angry as I am." Because we worked at this terrible place and we just talk crap about it, But that kind of stuck with me. I'm not really an angry. Well, I don't know if you can tell. I'm not really an angry person, generally speaking.
You don't come across as a guy that is all that angry. So you look pretty mild mannered there, John.
I love to laugh, and I love to make people laugh, and I laugh at myself all the time.
That's great.
Mike laughs at me, but I laugh at myself.
That's good.
So, Mike, before we go, we're going to give you a chance to have the last word. What do you think? This was your first co-hosting time. You should do a podcast. What are you gonna do with that?
Well, I Ray may not know this, but I have talked to John in the past, and I am thinking about doing a podcast after I retire, and with rails that I know in different crafts within the railroad, being managers, yard masters, other conductors and trainmen, and sharing some of their stories. So hopefully the general public can, glean some information. And, a lot of railroaders have a lot of fun stories, and it's, you become a family with these people. You spend 12 hours a day with them, and then you're away from home terminals also, you're spending a gob amount of time with these people. And so I'm thinking about doing something like that, and I'm even prepared as far as to write questions,
Look, you
for
already got a
them
fan.
to, yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully, it'll pan out a little bit. I've already even talked to some people that I know can, have some great stories. One of my good friends, he worked for the Conrail or Penn Central Conrail. Then he came out here to California and started working for Southern Pacific, and worked for another 45 years. So he had a long career and a lot of stories.
That'll be a listenable podcast. I'm looking forward to hearing it.
All right, sounds good.
That'd be something that a lot of people would definitely listen to on their trips in the car. I mean,
oh yeah.
Well, why don't we talk? The three of us can chat about that a little bit more. We don't need to bore everybody watching with that. But
they don't want to hear about types of microphones and recording techniques, and they're not here to hear how a podcast gets put together. I wouldn't think so either.
The type of the microphone doesn't matter so much as long as you speak directly into it.
There you go.
Yeah, you have real professional equipment there.
Yeah. So one last thing before we go, for me, I'm going to indulge here for a second. We had a couple birthdays, so I want to wish Paul, the fall guy, happy birthday. His birthday was on tax day, so we call Paul the tax man. I do. Awesome. And then
he's the tax man,
right? Our mutual friend Kevin Hill, who also is a railroader. Mike, you guys would like to do the fat sometime, I'm sure. Had his birthday today, but he's in Hawaii, so he's probably not listening. He's probably on a beach somewhere. So, ain't that a beach? Anyway, I guess that'll do it.
Well, good to have an April birthday. Mine's at the end of the month, so all for April birthdays. Good
I didn't know that. So I have another announcement. Happy birthday, Ray.
It's not yet, but yeah, thank you. No, but it just yay for April birthdays.
Yeah, coming up, right? And the last thing I want to mention, and then we'll go. Well, a couple things. One is this weekend on the channel here, I have a really cool. Well, I think it's a really cool video. The Clover Valley number 4, which is a 2662T locomotive that runs up in Niles Canyon, had its 100th birthday recently, and I was on hand to capture a lot of the festivities there and made a video about it, including some really dramatic drone footage. We were talking about drones earlier, and I was able to. I had a crash that day. It's the first time ever that I've crashed my drone.
I don't know,
but it wasn't. It still flew after it crashed, and I got even more great shots. So
great.
No one will ever know. Oh, I didn't say that.
And you may not know this, Ray, but after the crash, the engine will not have a 101st birthday.
All right. It's always something, Mike. Hey, you have a way of saying things that cracks me up every time. But I'm going to go before you start making fun of my hair again, because that was really sensitive.
Run, John, run quick.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Ray, and thank you.
Nice meeting you.
Yep. Thank you very much, Mike. I'll talk to you guys after the music is over. And thanks everybody for watching. We'll catch you all next month.
All right. Sounds good. Good night.